Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Gear Shed, and today we're going to be talking about dry suits. And before we get into it, please make sure you like and subscribe to our content. Make sure you're hitting that bell so you're getting all the updates and getting all sorts of different tips that we're putting out. So, let's get into it. Today we want to talk about dry suit care and maintenance. So I brought it inside and I got a dry suit here. And we're going to kind of get into it and see what we need to do and how we need to work with this dry suit to make sure that we get the maximum life out of it. Now, where I'm at, it's getting to be wintertime, and dry suits are pretty much essential here in California. If you're in more northern areas or you're up in the mountains, yeah, dry suit, it's a way to go in the winter. My opinion, but done a lot of boating and wetsuits and splash tops, and it's kind of rough. But today I've got Kaylee's dry suit, and we're going to take a look at it. Now, also, if you're in the southern hemisphere, this is a great video for you this time of year because it would be your springtime, and since it's your springtime, you're probably just getting out of your dry suit. But before you hang it up for the summer and stop using it, you're going to want to make sure you do some of this preventative maintenance and care on it just to make sure that your dry suit is all good, makes it through the summer. You don't want it falling apart in storage. So let's grab this dry suit and take a look at it. So I grabbed Kaylee's dry suit, and here she's got a Kokatat Meridian dry suit. Now, this dry suit has a couple different features. One of them, you got your neck gasket. It doesn't really, there's no other attachment points on this dry suit, but then you got your wrist gaskets as well. So you got 3 gaskets you need to worry about. Luckily, unlike some lower cost dry suits, this dry suit does have Gore-Tex socks rather than latex socks. But if you have a dry suit with latex socks, I have an old NRS dry suit with latex socks, you're going to want to make sure that you take the same care of those socks that you do the neck gaskets and the wrist gaskets, because I've had my socks fail, they've ripped open. I'm not a big fan of latex socks, but if it's all you can afford, then hey, latex socks are better than no socks at all or in a wetsuit. So we've also got 2 zippers on this thing. First one, we've got our chest zipper. This is pretty universal across most dry suits. Goes from your shoulder all the way down to kind of your opposite hip. And then on this one, we have a relief zipper, and since it's a women's dry suit, it's got the big zipper you can poop out of in the back. So that's great and kind of disgusting at the same time. So made sure to wash the inside of this just in case, you know. I'm just kidding, Kaylee. Don't poop in your dry suit. That's just gross. Just don't do it. So make sure you wash your dry suit before you get into it. That'll kind of get all the crap off of it and make sure that you know what you're doing. So the first step in maintaining your dry suit is we're going to grab some gloves, and I'm going to grab some 303 aerospace protectant. And if you don't have any of that, that's pretty cheap on NRS, or you can get it online on Amazon or something like that. And then we're going to work on the neck gasket. So let's get into that. I got my bottle of 303, and I just grabbed a paper towel. This is probably the easiest thing that you can do with it. So what we're going to do, I'll actually start on the wrist gasket because that's a little bit easier. Now, since the way this dry suit is, it's got kind of a neoprene collar cuff right here. So I'm going to take this neoprene cuff and I'm going to turn it inside out like that, so that you can see the inside of the dry suit. Now, once we flip that out, then you can start to see this little gasket right here. It's sealed on both sides, as you know if you have a dry suit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of this 303 aerospace protectant, and we're going to take our little cloth here, and you just want to get this kind of soaked in with some 303. Just get it wet. Now you're going to take that 303, and I like to wear gloves when I'm doing this just so I don't get this stuff all over my hands. Just take that 303 and you're going to rub it all over this. And you don't want to have a whole ton of like excess stuff, but it's okay. Kind of where the part that is glued, get it on that. Just any of this, it's going to really help. And you just want to make sure that all of it is shiny. So some of these latex gaskets, they tend to rip a lot, and especially if you use sunscreen or it's been sunny where you're boating. I get this in the springtime. You know, you want to make sure you take that sunscreen off before you do that, because nothing degrades a latex gasket more than sunscreen. So now that we've got that done, you want to make sure you do both sides of this. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to reach into the dry suit pull it out, and then just do both sides of this latex gasket. And you just want to make sure that you have all the sides of it, because you're going to see this latex gasket on this side. It's not super shiny, but you keep working it with that 303, and it's going to get the whole gasket. And again, make sure you get kind of the glued area as well, because that's going to need some protection. That's one of the failure points. In fact, from my experience with dry suits, the failure points are just basically the tips of the gaskets, mostly, and the zippers. So again, these are critical areas of your dry suit, and you do not want a gasket failing. If one of these gaskets starts to fail, you're going to get water in your suit, and if your suit starts filling up with water, well, you don't have a dry suit anymore. You just have a big soaking sock of wetness that you're going to be super uncomfortable. It's going to really suck and be horrible, and this can be a serious issue. There have been deaths on the river where people have had dry suit failures, and there's been several kayakers and some rafters out there too who have had the neck gasket of their dry suit fail, or their dry suit will rip on some sort of brush or something like that, and then you're done. That's it. You have to literally cut your way out of the dry suit. So again, another tip for dry suits. The problem with boating in the winter and boating in other seasons is that your amount of gear that you need increases exponentially. When you put on a dry suit, it's not just the dry suit that you need. You need underlayers, and because dry suit material is uncomfortable. So when you do layer up, make sure that you're using synthetic stuff too. My go-to is always fleece. And fleece is great because it's naturally hydrophobic. Your average fleece will only absorb about 1% of its weight in water. So because it doesn't absorb a lot of water, it stays warm even if it gets wet. So when you're sweating, it's great. Your base layers, hopefully they're all wicking, and they can take care of that. So that's kind of the ideal situation with that. You want to have, and then you also want to have more clothing too. You want to have extra clothing in case your dry suit rips or something like that happens. Have a dry bag handy with you, just with some more clothes. It's really helpful. I've had this happen multiple times, and where you just want to have more stuff. You want to be warmer out there. Sometimes it snows on you, and if it's dumping down snow, hey, you might need some more layers. Another added thing I would add is gloves or hats and things like that. Again, it just gets more and more gear intensive. So going back to the knife and your dry suit, there are times when bad things happen on the river, and a lot of times we don't want to think about them, but you want to be prepared for that eventuality. Get yourself a good knife, because if your dry suit starts filling up with water, don't hesitate. It's maybe you paid $1,000 for it, but still, $1,000 is not worth your life. Cut that thing up and get out of your dry suit. There are ways to do it, and that does involve some kind of intense decision making on your part that, hey, do I cut my way out of this dry suit? The neck gasket ripped open, I'm filled with water. There's no way for it to drain out, so you don't want to be just a big balloon of water. So just a thought, again, not to lower the mood of this video like that, but I think it's important that we talk about that. So let's get back to this. I'm going to finish these other two gaskets, and then we're going to move on to the zipper, and we'll talk about what I use on the zipper and how to work that out, all right? All right, for the next part, I have a little bit of Magnet Zip Tech, and this is kind of the best stuff that you can use. It's kind of a general protectant lubricant, and so what we're going to do, it comes in like this little like lip balm kind of tube. What we do is we take it, and you're going to take your dry suit. Maybe you can see there's one side with kind of that bit. You'll be able to tell which is the inside and outside, obviously, but what you want to do is you want to run this on the inside here all the way down, and your zipper, an unlubricated zipper, is kind of, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's going to look like that. You can see there's nothing on it. And a more lubricated zipper is going to have some stuff between the teeth when you start to lubricate it. So, getting back into it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down the zipper, and I'm doing this on the relief zipper right now. It's also good to do the outside a bit too. It just I've had the outside of these things fail. There's a little cord in there, and that sucks to lose that. So you're just going to want to go on the zipper and get it all lubricated. And so once I'm done with this, I'll show you what I do next. Alright guys, usually it takes a minute or two to get this all done, but we've got the full inside of the zipper here on one side done. So I'm just going to do the one side for now, and what we do is we just zip it up, and it's going to feel stiff at first, and this is kind of a hallmark of a Drysuit zipper when you first get it. It's going to feel stiff, so take it all the way, and you just need to unzip it, and then you're going to re-zip it again, and it's going to kind of get a bunch of lubricant all over the place, so just make sure you have a little rag handy to wash it out. But just keep going back and forth like this until the zipper runs really smoothly down the length of the zipper. And this is, again, another critical aspect of having a Drysuit is keeping the zipper really well done and really well lubricated. My old NRS Drysuit had a zipper failure. There was a cord in the zipper right where the teeth are, and that cord had snapped at one point, so it kind of just destroyed the whole zipper. So you want to make sure that those things are clean, make sure your zippers are clean before you lubricate them, and make sure that they are ready. Because when you're out there in the field, if you rip a Drysuit zipper, obviously you're probably not going to go rafting, so that would really suck. And so let's move on to the last point of gear maintenance that I want to focus on, and that's pinhole leaks. And these are going to be real critical as well. So let's check that out. Okay guys, so I've turned the Drysuit inside out, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to shut off all the lights, and obviously I'm not going to be able to show you that on the video, but I'm going to shut off all the lights, and then I'm going to take a bright flashlight and I'm going to put it on the inside of the Drysuit. And I'm just going to go through, and anywhere I see little bits of little pinholes of light, what you do, just take a Sharpie, mark that spot out, just so that you know where it is. So I just usually hit it with a little dot. And then what I do is I take some Aqua Seal, and Aqua Seal is great because you can take this stuff, and sometimes it depends on how big the pinhole leak is. They make little patches. They're basically little pieces of plastic, but you can put that over the top of it. Again, get some gloves, rub the Aqua Seal around, kind of in a nice even circle. Let it cure. Don't just let it dry, let it cure. So before you do that, make sure you have some time to put into letting your Drysuit air out and cure. Once it's cured, should be fine. If it's a larger hole, like a small rip or something like that, you may need to get one of those little plastic pieces to cover it over with. Basically, you just apply the Aqua Seal, put the plastic on it. I like to put a little ring of Aqua Seal around the outside of the plastic just so it doesn't peel up on the corners. And then sometimes I also like to do it just on the outside of that little hole if it's big enough. So if it's a big enough hole, you'll want to just make sure that's completely sealed and secure. And this is a good thing to do. Let's say you walk through some brush out there. After you walk through some brush, it's a good idea just to check your Drysuit over. It's usually pretty easy, pretty quick. You can turn the legs inside out, shine a flashlight down there, and if you see any pinholes, go ahead and patch those before your next time on the river. Because once your Drysuit starts leaking, then it loses the whole point of being a Drysuit and being dry. So that's not fun out there, but these are all sort of gear maintenance things that we want to take care of before we get on the river, or before we put our gear in storage, and especially the 303. Because I've had so many neck and wrist gaskets that I've gone through because it gets hot out, the latex sticks together, and it just falls apart. So, before you store it, if you guys are in the southern hemisphere, you're coming into your summer, make sure you're storing your Drysuit in a place that's not overly hot if you can. I know a lot of us are boaters, we live out in rafting camps, things like that, and it gets hard to do that. But if you can, make sure you store it in kind of a cool, dry place. And then also when you do store it with the zippers open, generally not rolled up. That tends to wear down the life of it and, make things crinkle up. So store it with those zippers open, and then when you're drying it, make sure you have those zippers open as well. That way you don't get mold in your Drysuit, because there's going to be nothing worse than a bunch of mold in there that'll destroy all of your taped seams and zippers and everything. So those are my tips for how to maintain and care for your dry suit. I hope you guys found this helpful. And if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments section. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And we'll see you guys downriver. Thanks so much for joining us.